Welcome to the first Review and Renew. We decided to do it in Sedona this year for if anyone's been here for more than 5 minutes, for obvious reasons. We're also hosting it virtually because since COVID, we've been blessed to have such a big virtual audience, and it's actually a global audience, so we're so excited to welcome our virtual attendees as well. We had a lot of people who got stuck in different cities and flights canceled and things like that, so I had a person send me an email saying that they send you all of their great energy that they would have shared in the room, and that they will be joining virtually. So it just shows that the spirit of the meeting really caught on, that someone who got canceled for their flight felt that disappointment in not being able to be here. So I wanted to send her love and her energy to everyone in the room. Whether you're watching from home or here with us in Sedona, the design of this meeting really is intended to kind of blend clinical updates with what I think we all need so much more, which is renewal and relaxation and just feelings of like strength and power to go back into our year for the rest of the year, to go back to our patients, our peers, and just share all of the things that we've picked up during this weekend. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping before I go a little bit deeper into the intent of the meeting. There have been a few session switches. It's all updated in your app. One of our speakers, Dr. Lee Schwartzberg, he and his fiancée were supposed to be here as well, and they woke up with burning throats. They said, it's not COVID, but it is sick. So they had to stay in Reno where they are, and he'll be joining us tomorrow virtually. Also, there's a non-colorectal talk that was scheduled for this morning that will instead be a little bit later this afternoon, and a diagnostics for, I think Dr. Matani has breast cancer treatment planning, will be up front in this morning's sessions. But again, like I said, any changes will be in your app. So please make sure that you look to that as well. There is a printed copy of an agenda and kind of a notebook. It gives you information about how to download that app that I keep referencing, how to claim credit for the weekend, how to find other conferences that we are hosting in the rest of the year. There's also an opportunity in the app to share your question and answers. I really encourage for the in-person audience, share your questions and answers in person. You do have the option to put it in the app, but it's always kind of a livelier discussion when there may be a back and forth between the speaker and the learner. This is a hybrid meeting, as I mentioned in the beginning. We want to be as inclusive as we can. When you do have a question, please wait for one of my team members after you raise your hand to bring you the microphone. It's the only way the virtual audience can hear your question, so just be a little bit patient with that. If you need any attendance throughout the meeting, any one of my team members can help you. They're at the registration desk or they're floating around the meeting. We invite everyone to join us this evening for a food-based healing meetup. I want to say I'm torn because in all of our other 5 cities, we had an open bar, and here we have an open smoothie station, so I'm kind of torn with like which one I am looking forward to more. But it's open to everyone. So if you have like husbands, wives, partners, kids, moms, dads, my mom is here with us, invite them to the meetup because I know sometimes they're in the hotel and you miss them all day, and it might be a nice way to connect with them at the end of the meeting. And then there is a Vortex hike excursion that if you are signed up for, you should have made sure that you RSVP'd or checked in at the front desk. And that meetup will be at 5:30 in the lobby. I also want to just call attention to anyone who might not have taken the conference bags. We not only are giving away 2 incredible books, but the people that wrote these books are speakers for this meeting. Dr. Brian Lounda wrote a book, Empowered Against Cancer, with Connor Middleman. It is such an incredible book. Brian's going to be speaking with us today. He's from the University of California. No, he's not from the University of California. That's the forward, Donald Abrams. He's going to give such a great integrative medicine review. And then I interviewed Dr. Kashyap Patel for this book, for our podcast, Between Life and Death, From Despair to Hope. This is one of those books that you read and then you pass on, because many of us have patients, have friends, have family members that are in this kind of place where they're experiencing these emotions. And Dr. Patel has chronicled experiences he's had over his decades-long career, and it's such a powerful book. One of my team members, Courtney, and I had to read it to interview him for the podcast. It really changed our lives in a lot of ways. So if you didn't pick up a bag in the front, please do. Both books are included in the bag. I wanted to say before I introduce the first session and kind of get a little bit deeper into the intent of the meeting, an incredible thank you for my team. I have a small team, a very young and beautiful team of all women. Until now, we just hired our first guy, so he'll do the heavy lifting in future meetings. But my team has traveled. This is our 6th city for the summer. Most of them have gone city to city. 2 of them have moved into brand new homes during this travel of times. One of them, shortly before, got engaged. So these women have been real powerhouses in making sure that we have educated thousands of learners this summer. And they've put their heart and soul into all of the programs that we've developed and presented. And I just want to say a heartfelt thank you to them for that, and also to prepare for this meeting today. Okay, so why do a review and renew meeting? I want to just share a little bit before I introduce who's going to open us up with something kind of unusual for a medical education meeting. In 2014, I had my little boy Joseph, who's here. And in 2015, it was Christmas time, and I was walking through the mall, and I was rushing because it was like Christmas Eve, and of course, I'm a procrastinator with this kind of stuff. And I'm walking through, and there was like a bunch of girls walking towards me, and all of them were like this, talking to each other, but like this on their phones. And they couldn't see anybody, never mind me. So I'm walking, I have my bags, and I sidestepped to make sure that we didn't collide. And when I did, I felt this pop in my left foot. So I was like, oh, that was weird. And I kept walking, and by the time I got to my car, which was parked, if anybody goes to the mall on Christmas Eve, it was like on the grass at the edge of the parking lot. So by the time I got to my car, I was sweating. I mean, my body was in so much pain from this foot thing, and I was crying like I felt sick, physically ill from this pain. I thought, what did I do? It wasn't like a bone, nothing like that. So I go home, I'm telling my husband, I'm wrapping presents, and I said, I think I have to go to the ER, or at least urgent care, for them to take a look at this, because I don't know what I did. So I go to the ER, they ordered an MRI, and it turns out that I tore my left tibial tendon. And the doctor was, the urgent care doctor was from the local emergency room, and he said, this isn't a common, in fact, it's like tennis players get this injury. This isn't a common thing from just stepping aside. So I said, well, maybe it was the bags, the weight, whatever. So fast forward, I go through all the physical therapy for this. I'm wearing a boot. And in the 8 weeks that I'm wearing a boot, I developed this terrible pain. Now, remember I said I just had little Joe. And I found that if I had to hold the car seat, my arms would hurt so much. Or if I had to lift him out of the crib, sometimes I couldn't lift him out of the crib. I would have to have my husband come and help me. And I thought, it can't be, my back can't hurt this much that I can't lift a 10-pound baby from wearing a boot. So I kept communicating with my doctors that something didn't feel right. These injuries, the intensity of the pain didn't feel right. It didn't match what I was experiencing. Well, I'd go on for 5 years trying my best to convince doctors something was wrong. And they would order blood tests, and they would order images, and they'd see weird little things happening, but nothing really jumped out at any of them individually. Well, at a cancer conference called The Best of Breast in January in 2020, before COVID-19 got us, I was sitting with a friend of mine, Kevin Kalinsky from Columbia at the time, and he said, "Have you considered seeing a rheumatologist?" And I said, "No, I mean, rheumatology is like MS, Crohn's, like I don't need a rheumatologist." And he said, I'd like you to talk to somebody at Columbia, and they'll kind of point you in the right direction." So ultimately, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called ankylosing spondylitis, and when you have an autoimmune disease, it's really kind of like you can name one, but you have a constellation of other things that are affecting you. And so since then, it's like non-radiographic spondyloarthropathy, it's inflammatory arthritis, it's like all of these other things. And I thought, after all these years, like finally somebody gave me a diagnosis, a name of something. And having been trained as a breast cancer researcher and worked all my life in cancer, it was such a disconnect, because in cancer, you don't want the diagnosis. You want the doctor to say, "It's nothing, it's just this, it's just..." But for autoimmune, especially for people who kind of live with this every day, you're desperate for a diagnosis. You're desperate for an answer. And so when I was given these kind of answers and put on a biologic, the doctor said, this should kind of be smooth sailing. Well, COVID came, and then for whatever reason, I decided it might be a wonderful idea to take a teenage boy, a young child, my husband, and all cramp into a RV and go to all of these cities after we'd all been together for months and months. And probably a week and a half into the RV trip, I just experienced this major flare. And it came in the form of abscesses in my throat that were swollen so much that as soon as I got to the emergency room, they had to drain them because they were afraid my airways would be constricted, blocked. So it was COVID, nobody could visit me, I was all alone. My husband took the boys, went back home. And in those days in the hospital, I started thinking, like, I can't do this. I'm working full-time, I'm a mom full-time, I'm a wife full-time, I'm a friend full-time, all the things that all of us experience, all of the responsibilities, all of those things that we put on ourselves and that we are given by others. And I thought, I can't sustain this. Like, this can't be my life. Not even just that it won't be my life, it can't be my life. And I remember thinking, like, what are my options? And one option that came up in a few different ways was this, in my mind at the time, this nonsensical idea of checking into a health retreat. Again, being a person who's worked with research and hearing patients sit in front of me and say, "Oh, my friend is doing this, or my other friend is doing this, or my mother recommended this." And you sit there and say, "This is the protocol for your treatment. Stick with this, stick with this. Those things don't work, or those things, we don't have the data." I had that conflict internally, like, what would I do at this health retreat? So I ended up registering for the retreat. I spent about 28 days there. It was raw vegan. Not sure if anybody in here are raw vegan. Congratulations, and you are a miracle, because raw veganism is hard and hard. But it was wonderful. They had fast days where all you had was this, coconut with a straw and a half of an avocado, and it let your body rest and it let your kind of gut reset. And there were all of these sessions, these like wonderful sessions. There was this, I can't remember what it's called, but you guys will know. It's like a hut where you go in and it's hot. And it's a sweat lodge, not a sweat lodge, but something like that. And it was all of these weird things, acupuncture. There was a chiropractor that I felt like he turned my intestines inside out from the outside. There was colonics, which I never have done since. So there were all of these things, all of these like crazy but wonderful things. And I think one of the one of the most powerful things was that in the health retreat, you were with other people facing chronic disease, terminal disease, people who were just going through a terrible divorce, people who had, financial issues. Really, really, really powerful things that the energy shared bonded you forever. What I learned from that time, and remember, I'm disconnected from my family too. You were allowed 1 hour of your iPad once a week to do a FaceTime. And it really, really showed me that there's the other side of healing, the side that we typically, as practitioners in oncology, dismiss. And it's not necessarily because we don't have time to learn about it, but it is a data-free zone. There are such crazy things being peddled. But when I thought about the disease side of me, it was so incredible for me to experience. When I thought about the practitioner side of me, it was so incredible for me to understand. And I think that is what powered this Review and Renew, that we're not only here to give you the tools to go back as a better doctor or nurse or APP on Monday, but we want to give you things that you're going to leave as a better mom, dad, sister, brother, caregiver, that you didn't come in with. And so I ask you to be open to the weekend, to kind of allow yourself to experience, to allow yourself to communicate with each other, to connect with each other. Because I promise you that you'll be changed. I definitely was changed from my experience.